Hello, and welcome to Birding Conversations, where we open a floor to real conversations with professionals, community leaders, moms, where we're discussing the issues, the hardship, to bring healing, support, and community to those who struggle with perinatal disorders. Today, I have the honor to welcome Devorah Kozlik. Devorah Kozlik is a licensed professional social worker that has been a team with Sparks for many, many, many years, is going to be joining me today. So welcome, Devorah. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you very much for having me.
What would you say is the red flags for a mom that right now sits and is maybe listening to us, and she's after a baby or pregnant, and she's asking herself, am I okay?
Right.
So what would be her red flags to say, let me pick up a call, let me reach out for help?
Okay. So if she's feeling like part of her is not present, and she's feeling that maybe beginning of the day, sometimes the end of the day, or somewhere in the middle, and there's an anxiety, like having to do with the, like we said, the autonomic nervous system that's traveling upwards, and she feels that recurring, and it's looping, recurring and recurring, and
kind
it's
of
going
obsessing,
right, and it's going on. And of course, just to throw into the mix, you mentioned obsessing. If someone has some history of obsession, of OCD,
depression and anxiety.
Exactly. Or any traumas that may have taken place. So that also would be a trigger to make the nervous system.
Or any mental health themselves or in their family.
Yes, for sure. So if she's feeling that, and that's preventing her from bonding normally with the baby, it's also putting her into mood swings. She may sometimes just burst out and get angry for seemingly
or cry without understanding why.
Right. And if you're bringing that up, Esther, I specifically remember a case where a young mom who thought she can handle everything. She was one of those perfect people.
Mom.
Yes. She had, I think, 3 children, and she had everything in place. And the boss says, hey, you're my high power woman. Please get back into the office. You're talking about 5 weeks perinatal.
Wow.
And I said, I think you need to step lightly, slow down, because you may notice, you may think that you have it all in the bag and you've got the babysitter and money's not such an object and you can have people in place. But what about you? What about what's going to happen inside your body and your nervous system?
It takes long to really recuperate.
Exactly. That is a whole topic on its own.
Correct.
So a couple of days into the job, I got a phone call, and she said, Devorah, I have to speak to you. I said, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I just had this episode. I was on a conversation with a client.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, my head started spinning. I began to panic and sweat. And I felt like drained. I immediately excused myself. I ran into the bathroom to freshen up, and I started crying.
Yeah.
And she described that as a torrent, Niagara Falls.
Yes.
And she was quickly trying to straighten up. There are other people, and is anyone noticing? You spoke earlier about that, about people, and are they noticing, and what does that do to me?
Too much too soon.
Yeah. And I said, okay, take some water, have something, a fruit, orange juice, and you should excuse yourself and go and leave.
Go home.
And go home.
Yeah.
She was not seeing beyond having some sessions with me, I felt that she should be seen by
A
a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
We have
in
a number
perinatal,
on our list,
which we
with
call
Sparks.
reproductive
Yes,
psychiatrists.
and just take a couple of days off and reassess what's happening.
Yeah.
Now, on the subject of taking time off, which you mentioned just prior, there are countries like Austria that have 2 years, and they understand.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes.
The most I heard was 3 months,
Yes.
6 months.
Well, 3 months in countries like Israel. I believe Switzerland has 6 months to a year. And
in America, everything is rush.
Yes.
It's officially 6 weeks. But
I think that now there's something written in one of the newer laws about postpartum having more weeks. Maybe you can have an appeal, maybe 12 weeks. I've also heard lately
nice.
of men, their husbands, getting
really?
postpartum leave. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're in a different age right now, Esther.
That sounds very exciting. I remember after me having my daughter, 2 weeks later, I was back to work, but I was okay. But was it smart? No. Luckily, I was okay. Yes. But also, like, if we're talking about pressure at the time, I was doing mortgages and I had many deals that had to close, and I was in the middle of bringing all together a development. I didn't have the luxury, but what I did do, and this is going back to what you were talking about, support, I had a lot of help and I had a lot of support.
Very important.
So when I came home,
support as well.
And also physical. I had a night nurse. I knew that I cannot be perfect mom that can be out to work, and I can also be up all night with my baby. So I had a night nurse. I worked less hours, was 2 weeks after birth, but less hours, had quality time with my baby, lots of bonding time, but didn't clean my home, was not up at night with the baby. Only, I'm a very late sleeper as is, so I have been up and around, but till a certain time. So understanding, which I'm just going back to what you said, there is no need to be perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect for whom? For what?
There is actually no such concept.
No such
concept. It's all in the mind.
Absolutely.
And just feeling okay, being okay, and looking for proof of positive that I am functioning, and pointing out some positive aspects of how you're managing your day and so on.
I agree with that. So going back to those red flags, if I want to summarize them just in short, because of course we can elaborate on them a lot more, I would say basically checking after how you function, how you feel, what you think.
What you're feeling in your body.
In your body.
Because as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk writes in his book, The Body Keeps a Score, and that's well worth reading, of how memories of the mind are different than trauma, recurring trauma, and how the body responds to that. Because memories, there could be cognitive distortions of how did it really happen, but maybe not. And there are other messages coming in because the mind plays with us.
Yes.
And can deflate and inflate.
Right.
But the body doesn't lie.
The body doesn't lie.
The body is instinctual and whatever.
That's where we say, how does it feel in your stomach?
Right.
Our stomach is our second gut.
Exactly.
And most of the nerve system, serotonin, it starts in the gut system. So how do you feel? And sometimes we know the truth and we just want to deny it. I'm sure you had some calls where moms would tell you, I knew something is off. I just made believe, or I wanted to be stronger than that.
Right. So in childbirth, and sometimes, there are C-sections and other complications and fluctuating blood pressure. Sometimes there might be a doctor or a nurse who's not sympathetic at all. If I can get personal here, with one of my children, it was my third actually, he was an absolute wonderful doctor with my second birth. With the third, it wasn't happening quickly enough, and it was a a group, and he was going on vacation, and he had his bags packed going to Jamaica.
So he was in a rush.
Now I interfered with his plans because he was still on, and he was telling, I was already at the hospital, and he tells the intern, give her a tranquilizer, make sure that she's taking a tranquilizer. And me being me, no one is doing anything to this baby or to me. And the nurses, and there was a chit chat, and they were like muttering under their breath.
Same doctor, different scene.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh. I'm sorry you went through that, because even it's many years back.
Right.
But this thing a birth experience is something that takes
that's in the body.
Anchors,
so I have the vision. I feel it as I'm talking to you. I'm actually working up some sort of a sensation, and it's happening to me right here as so that's a trigger. That's happening right here as I'm talking to you. So, and he came along and he said to me, you in the bed, you better have this baby as quickly as possible. So now let's hope things are a little better at this stage. But I've heard so many stories about insensitivities.
Choose
and
your
rough
doctor
treatment.
wisely, whom you choose.
Yeah, and having a doula
is
is
very
highly recommended, and it's very important to help the mom soothe her before childbirth,
help her breathe
during.
Some self-hypnosis is available now. We have so many resources for that.
Lots of wonderful doulas and options and how to prepare in the right way.
So what you're thinking is that if we can make the birth experience more positive, can this prevent having after symptoms of any type of postpartum depression and anxiety?
Yes.
Or you would say it's not related?
No, I would say to an extent, it definitely is related.
To an extent.
And it's very important to discuss and to get help. Like in a case like mine, I really should have gone to a professional to have it all processed. I didn't. When I was having my first set of children, there wasn't much to read about or recognize, and people just like turn the page.
Absolutely not. I remember even when Sparks opened in 2007, how was a subject that was not discussed. And I myself, that I have been pretty worldly, and I have been teaching for many years, like 12th graders and post-high school, and they would come back to me, and thinking back then about this student, another student, that they would reach back to me and talk about what they feel and experience after they had a baby. I couldn't put the two together. Maybe because I didn't experience that. I didn't know. I just simply didn't know. And going back to that, I remember when Dr. Twersky was saying to me that when he was in medical school, they had no clue then that this is hormonal and it's biochemical. He said what he was taught back then in medical school, that depression is a loss. So what is it a loss of? A mom is using part of her uterus. So maybe him or another student would say, but she doesn't feel that. The professor would say, well, she feels it subconsciously. There was no clue.
Yeah, that was a catchphrase for covering everything up, and that would be an answer.
That was the answer. Yeah. But today we know that this is biochemical. We know it's hormonal. We know that it's real. And I liked your answer where you said it could be part of the cases, and it could be a trigger not to have a negative experience in birth. So we definitely, I guess, should do everything we possibly can.
We should widen the lens so that each and every woman should feel comfortable to have feelings, to express those feelings, and not to say, it'll go away, it's not happening.
Yeah, and to have a positive experience.
Yeah, to face forward. But of course, it's very necessary to have support. So we need to inspire husbands and caregivers and community and relatives to be observant, to be aware, and to notice, and to be mindful
Right.
of what's happening,
And I would like,
realm.
Devorah, for you to
Yes.
elaborate a little bit on, because we know that not every postpartum is the same, not just that not every woman is the same, but even in the categories of postpartum, we have postpartum depression, we have an anxiety, we have postpartum OCD, we have PTSD, which is post-traumatic disorder, and we have bipolar, postpartum bipolar, and postpartum psychosis. But I would like to take a moment and speak about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which I believe that both of us have been seeing it a lot over the years, where all trauma is coming up.
Yes.
So what is your take on that?
Well, it's definitely the truth that the body suffers and re-suffers, again, looping. And so the anxiety cannot escape. It's like you want it to escape. Actually, if you think about how we're created, each and every one of us, with a possibility of an in and out system, the brain, right? The heart and lung, and the digestive tract. If you think about our skin and our pores, right?
Right.
What goes in, we can then, balance it out, balance the energy, and get back to health, the physical, emotional health, and psychological health. So there are numerous ways to take care of that looping of keeping the anxiety within. And if you want to talk just about 2 or 3, there's an effective intervention called EMDR. And
EMDR is powerful.
Yes.
But I trust you as a practitioner to do that, because you have to know how to do EMDR.
Yes. Well, it comes along with needing to monitor the patient and understand where he or she is in their trauma. You can't move ahead. It has to do with the trauma, the person, the individual feeling that the trauma is inside them, when actually it's really not the case for anyone. Anyone who lives through trauma, it's there, and it's in them if they are experiencing it in that way and holding on to the trauma. But if there are effective ways to have that trauma released,
even without talking about it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I've had that numerous times when clients were not comfortable discussing.
It wouldn't serve them good,
right? And
open that.
And I'm very much in practice about working from the present to the future. That's kind of one of my modus operandi, ways of treating my clients. So there's mindfulness, there's working with senses, and being somatic in present time, somatic experience. That's Ricky Bernstein, the courses that I took with her. So
you're also good in self-hypnosis.
Yeah,
I manipulating your own mind.
Yes, but I've taken extensive hypnosis courses, and it's a lot is about self-belief and identity. So unfortunately, many people haven't had great a track record of how they were raised, family of origin, people validating them, and so on. So with the right professional and the right guidance,
trauma could be healed.
People could be trained to recognize the symptoms of what's happening, where they're feeling it in their body, how to release it, and how to identify with themselves and say, yes, I deserve good.
Yeah, I've been speaking a lot over the years to moms, going just for another minute back to trauma, where they have been saying that they have been treating their trauma, let's say as teenagers, and they thought that they're done with it. And then all of a sudden, after birth, there is something with the neurotransmitters.
A strong, the monster is surging up.
And they needed help again.
Yes.
And what I found it to be helpful, that if they were doing everything you were just mentioning, or part of them, if it's somatic work, if it's EMDR, if it's both, and other things, and not just talk therapy, that helped them a lot to kind of put it to sleep. We can't really say that they're going to forget.
Well, it's gaining awareness of how each and every person to recognize their own symptoms. Like you said, everyone's so different. Snowflakes are different. People are very different from each other. So how to recognize the symptoms and how to know how to relax their body. There's all sorts of tapping movements and stress-reducing exercises.
Which can all be helpful.
Which can definitely provide them with security so they don't feel, like you said, bereft out there in the ocean. So all this work, where, you know, it's like throwing a lifesaver out to the moms. And, you know, we need to look at it this way. When a mom is challenged this way, so is her husband and her other members, the caregivers, her parents, generations.
And the infant. I always remember Dr. Twersky telling me that it's the only illness that affects two primary victims, which is mom and infant.
Right.
Because in the case that she cannot bond with her infant, the infant is a primary victim because it's so crucial for the child's future.
Right.
But going back 1 second to trauma, do you agree with the comment I made that it's not necessarily forgetting that what happened, but it's kind of being in peace and living with it, even if that incident happened, which we cannot erase.
We don't want to deny. It's if you deny it, it comes surging up stronger. So we want to recognize it, let it take up this, and then, like I said, different exercises, mindfulness, kind of
to let it rest in peace.
As we said, our body has in and out systems. So whatever is coming in can also be released in one way or another. So we don't look, if we just right here and now, you clench your fist like this, what are you feeling?
Right.
You're feeling stress. You're feeling all that stress is traveling into your body. Or letting go.
Yeah.
Yes.
So everything makes a difference.
Yeah. Yoga is great for postpartum moms.
Yeah.
Terrific
so
way
it's all
to
good.
release
So, Devorah, I'm going to
stress.
let you close the floor by sharing with me which was the stories which were the most outstriking since for how many years are we working together?
About 8 years, I think.
At least.
Yeah.
At least, if not more. What are the stories that you can say, if you want to share one or two, that you can say, if this could have happened, then every mom has hope? Because at the end of the day, there is hope. And we want them to embrace that hope.
Right. So on one particular case that comes to mind, a couple, I think this was the second child. The woman was extremely creative and a doer, very active, doing community work and also at her job. And she was not getting sleep, and the family was in flux and didn't know exactly how to handle it. It's important that when a mother is not sleeping, if it's a day or two, whatever, to hone in on that and make sure that she's getting proper attention, that she's
to address
taking care, that there are professionals that are there, and if medication is necessary and so on, and sometimes hospitalization. Now in this case, there was no stopping. It just kept on going, and she wasn't feeling well, and she was acting out. She was not being herself. Absolutely. She was a very, like a happy, well-adjusted, colorful, energetic person.
Out of character.
Yeah. And she was cursing and throwing things, and her mom had to be around all the time because the baby, they couldn't leave her alone with the baby. The husband had to go to work, and she was hospitalized. And she was hospitalized at a time, I think it was Christmas, New Year's, and there wasn't enough staff.
Oh, my
So
worst time.
I spent a lot of time talking to her, even in the hospital, with the mom, with the dad. He came down individually. The mom came down. And it took a while, and they were so in despair. It was going on 7 or 8 weeks, and she was still in the hospital. And they said, "When will it end? When will it end?" I said, "It will end."
And it ended.
The body wants to heal. The brain wants to heal. We need to give it a little bit more time. And thank God there was a happy ending. And they came in and they called me, and I heard from her mom as well. And they said, "Thank you, Sparks, for being there for us, for noticing what we couldn't notice because we were in it." And when it's always the outsider, that's
Right.
why it's nice to have any support, a mentor, or professional joining, because that's the outside eye catching it and reframing it.
That is so heartwarming.
Yeah.
Must be so heartwarming for you.
That's
Those
nice.
are the stories that
I still have that message. I haven't erased it.
Wow. Those
from the
are
mom.
those are the messages that give us life, and sharing a story like that, where this was already an extreme case that, not most do not need to get hospitalized.
Yes.
So
another case came to mind about a girl that was very alone, didn't have any family, husband extremely abusive, you might recall. So Sparks found her a place to stay, and we allotted her some funds. And so
she had a very difficult childhood.
She had an extremely horrendous, traumatized, abusive childhood in every avenue, I would say.
Yeah. And she's doing well.
She's doing well.
Yeah.
Here and there she calls me and we connect. And her little girl is, I think, about 6 years old at this point. So there's still a struggle. There's still, emotions. She is on her own, and she has a support system. She has friends who care for her.
So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, absolutely.
And
the sparks. What does sparks mean?
Sparks. It's bringing back a spark
in the tunnel. Sparks in the tunnel. Sparks during the tunnel.
To reach out for help. To reach out for help. Don't hesitate, moms, family members. Don't hesitate. So
please don't.
Please don't. So thank you so much, Devorah.
Thank you
for being here with me today, and not just today, just every day.